Hey everybody. So what we're going to do in this video is I'm going to go through the dystopian PowerPoint with you guys because I think it is essential that I help you guys with the slides to make sure that you understand exactly what this unit is going to consist of. So what we're going to do first is I'm going to show you how to access the PowerPoint. Again, that is part of this week's activities is that you are going to be going through the PowerPoint. You can either watch this video or you can do the PowerPoint on your own, and you're going to be answering some questions with it, and you will be referring to this PowerPoint multiple times throughout this unit. So here are my three classes. Whichever class you're in, you're just going to go ahead and click on your module. I'm just going to go ahead and click on honors, and the PowerPoint itself will be under files. So if you click on the files section, you'll be able to see it sitting right on top. It's called Dystopian Literature PowerPoint. So you're going to go ahead and click on the PowerPoint and it should open up for you. All right. So this is the PowerPoint that will kind of comprise of all of the things we will be doing within this unit. This is dystopian literature. And what this is, why I keep saying that it's my favorite unit that we do, is because it has shelled out some of the most amazing stories, concepts, and ideas spanning back over 100 years. And it's stuff that even if you're not sure what the word dystopian means, you might be familiar with some of those stories and movies. All right. So moving into this, we have a couple of definitions of dystopian. So it can be an imagined place or state in which everything is unpleasant or bad, typically considered a totalitarian or environmentally degraded society. It can be an imaginary place where people lead dehumanized and often fearful lives. And when I say dehumanized, think of them kind of like workers or people that are considered less than human. It can be a society characterized by human misery as squalor, oppression, disease, or overcrowding. And I'll have some examples I'm going to discuss with you. Or a dystopian story could be a futuristic imagined universe in which oppressive societal control and the illusion of a perfect society are maintained through corporate, bureaucratic, technological, moral, or totalitarian control. As in, kind of think about what's going on with our world right now. We are restricted in some of the things that we do. And it might be restrictions through government or through the oppressive ways that people are treated. So these are four different definitions. So dystopian does not necessarily just mean one thing, it can mean a variety of different things. So this I like to put in this PowerPoint because I think it really does represent or kind of communicate with the students the types of stories I'm talking about. Some of these you might have heard of, such as things like The Hunger Games. The Hunger Games, whether you read the story or you saw the movie when it came out, this is what kind of started this new society in getting interested in dystopian novels. Because consider this story. We have Katniss Everdeen. We have her living in a certain district and they are forced to do certain things. She is forced to join the Hunger Games in order to entertain those people that are above her. So someone like Katniss Everdeen and her family and the people living in other districts are considered somewhat less than human. So the Hunger Games, it is totalitarian government, and the horrors that they experience are televised for the entertainment of others. I like this because it is all books on this list that might interest you, or maybe that you have read them before. Some of the older ones on here, some of these stories have been around for years, such as something like 1984. 1984 again promotes censorship, where we are only told or allowed to view certain things. It talks about the culture of fear, what we are supposed to fear versus what we believe fear really is. So we're told through media what we're supposed to be scared of. Right now, think of our own society. What are we all scared of? We're scared of this virus, right? And is it because we're really scared, or is it because the media is forcing us to be scared of something? So 1984 has great examples of kind of what we're going through right now: censorship, government, and they erase history to create their own history. So I have a ton of books next to me. Some of them we are going to talk about in a little more detail. A lot of you, if you see down here, we have The Giver. A lot of you guys read that in middle school. The Giver has examples of what I'm going to talk about through dystopian society or utopian society. We also have other things that might be a little more current. Maybe you saw the movie for Ready Player One. Ready Player One is another example of a dystopian society where people are treated more like less than people. But where is their escape? Their escape is virtual reality because their real world is so contaminated and so destroyed by man's interference. And we have other things on here that you guys might be have been exposed to, such as Divergent. We also have A Handmaid's Tale, which is a very, very popular show on Hulu right now. It's an Emmy award-winning show, and it deals with a lot of very, very questionable materials and how we're treating women in a future where women can no longer get pregnant. So this is a very, very scary book. We also have Lord of the Flies, The Time Machine, and let's see, is there anything else on here? Oh, of course, I forgot Fahrenheit 451. Fahrenheit 451, we're going to get into in a little more detail in a little bit, but this book is very important and it still kind of rings true to our society today. So, what I recommend you do with this slide is kind of take a look at some of these books on here and see if you've heard of any of them. Maybe do a little bit of research to understand why they are considered a dystopian novel. All right. So I did mention a utopia versus a dystopia. A utopia is what we consider a society in which everything is perfect. So it comes from a Greek word, and the original idea behind this word was coined by a man named Sir Thomas More. He wrote a book called Utopia in 1516, in which he described a place that was absolutely perfect, as in a place, state, or condition that's ideal. So there's no people breaking laws. Everyone follows the prescribed customs and traditions. There's no one getting mad at each other. There's no war. Everything is perfect. Some people consider a utopia kind of like a paradise or a heaven in which there is no good and evil. It is all just perfect. And if you consider the perfect idea of a society, in a utopia, the dystopia is the total opposite. That is where everything has gone wrong. You have a futuristic imagined universe in which society, it seems to be the illusion of a perfect society, but people are generally controlled through corporate, bureaucratic, technological, or totalitarian control. Dystopias, through an exaggerated worst case scenario, make a criticism about our current trends. So these books, all these books that I have right here, might seem to be fiction, but all of the ideas in them come from reality. If you see our reality right now, the whole COVID-19 thing, an author could easily take these ideas and write them into a fictional dystopian story. So it might be a societal norm, it might be a political system, but some of these stories seem on the surface to be utopian, but underneath, it's where the dystopia really, really, truly lies. So, a utopia versus dystopia, both of them share characteristics generally of science fiction. You're going to see fantasy. You're going to see that they're usually set in some sort of future. It might be a post apocalyptic future, it could be a future on another planet, but it's generally used to show that it somehow resembles a perfect society, but something has gone wrong. Think of the Hunger Games. Those people living in District 1, all the rich people, they are living in a utopia. And then the people in District 12, where Katniss Everdeen lives, are suffering just to find food and are fighting to the death in the Hunger Games. So a lot of what you see in these types of stories on the surface is utopia, but then all the deep, dark horrors are the dystopian part of it. So utopia and dystopia, perfect versus not so perfect. All right. This slide I definitely want you to take heed on because we will address it with some of the stories that we read. These are characteristics of dystopian stories. And these stories, what you're going to see is different elements. Not every element is going to be found in every story. You're going to see things such as propaganda being used to control the citizens. That propaganda might be in printed press, it could be on TV, it could be through the media, it could be online, but they are forced to believe a certain way. Information and independent thought and freedom are restricted. So, in something, a great story like V for Vendetta, people are restricted into what they're able to do and what they're able to believe. So, maybe channels on TV are restricted. You're only allowed to watch certain ones, and all those certain channels have very clear ideas. You're not allowed to believe any other way. You're not allowed to showcase your opinions, or you might be punished for them. We're moving on to something like a figurehead or a concept is worshipped by society. This one's very, very interesting. In a lot of these stories, you're going to find that all the society is forced to worship a certain person or a certain idea, such as something like time. So, in one of the stories that some of my students will be reading, you will be expected to identify that in a story, you might not be worshiping, let's say, God, you might be worshiping time, or someone that rules a country or has a certain idea that everyone is supposed to follow that idea. And I'll get into more detail with that in some of what we're going to do in the next slides. Another example of a characteristic is the natural world is banished or distrusted. As in, you are no longer allowed to go out into the world. I think The Giver does that in some of its ideas, that you're supposed to believe just what's in front of you. And if you step out into the natural world, you might be destroyed. Citizens live in a dehumanized state. Like I said, that's when they're considered less than human. They're more like droids or workers, in which their own single opinion doesn't matter. They only respond to the figurehead. So this becomes something like the Hunger Games. Those citizens are treated like pawns, where they're just entertainment. They're not really considered human. Citizens have a fear of the outside world. This comes up a lot, where they're right now, do we have a fear of the outside world? Yeah, we do. We're being kind of droned on and taught we need to stay inside because of this COVID-19. So if this was written into a story, this could be part of it. We have a fear of stepping outside because what could happen? We could come in contact with someone that has the virus. And that happens a lot in these types of stories. Citizens are perceived to be under constant surveillance. That is definitely something in V for Vendetta. Wherever you go, you are under watch by someone else, whether it's a named corporation or something like in 1984 or Brave New World, they coined the term Big Brother. Big Brother is watching you. That means that there were cameras everywhere, surveillance. No matter where you went, you were always tracked. And we still have that term today. Big Brother is watching you. We even have that show Big Brother. And what's the whole point? We're watching a group of people in everything they do. So Big Brother is always watching you. Citizens conform to uniform expectations. Individuality and distance are bad. As in, again, the idea of drones or workers, where everyone is believed and expected to do the same thing like everyone else does. In a lot of these stories, we do not believe in individuality. So you'll see this a lot in these types of stories. And then finally, the society is an illusion of a perfect utopian world. Again, a lot of these stories on the surface, it seems very utopian, but it's just not. There's something wrong with the society. All right, so definitely check out this slide. We're going to be coming back to it quite frequently to identify the elements in some of the stories that we read. All right, so why? Why do we enjoy dystopian stories? I gave you a big old list on here of some of the ones that you might be familiar with. Again, why do we enjoy them? That's something that you might want to question for yourself. Why do you think you would enjoy a dystopian story or watching a dystopian movie versus a utopian movie? Because if you consider it, which one do you think would have more plot? If you have a story about a utopian world and nothing is wrong, is there really going to be a plot? Probably not. We like these stories, Hunger Games, Brave New World, The Maze Runner, because there's something wrong and the protagonist has to solve it, or the protagonist is aware that something is wrong. So that's why we enjoy these stories. They always have something to give us, unlike a utopian story. If everything's perfect, what is there to solve? So look at some of the ones I have on here, some of the ones I've already talked about. We have Alas Babylon. That one actually takes place in Florida after a nuclear explosion. If anyone has ever seen the movie Blade Runner, that's another great example. We also have Oryx and Crake and Neuromancer. Again, really good stories with different differences in how they perceive a dystopian story to be. Again, through control, through natural disasters, through man made disasters, through technological advances. Lots of different things are in these categories. So, we have four different types of dystopian control, and all four of these are going to be very, very important. The first one that we're going to talk about is corporate control. So, corporate control means that one or more large corporation controls society through their products, through advertising, and through media. You can say that the Hunger Games is an example of a corporate control. That's where you have the mass, everybody, the masses that are all controlled through what they watch, what they view online, and what is kind of thrown at them through advertising. I have two examples on here. We have Minority Report and The Running Man. The Running Man was actually written by Stephen King. And it is a really great story about what happens when a game show becomes reality, becomes people are now cheering on these men that are ripping each other apart for entertainment. And they are told that that's supposed to be entertainment because that's what corporations have told them is appropriate. So, this is the first type. This is corporate control. And there's a lot of different stories that have corporate control as their type of dystopian control. The next one we have is bureaucratic control. I've been talking to you about V for Vendetta. This is where the society is controlled by a mindless bureaucracy through red tape, relentless regulations, and incompetent government officials. As in, you're never going to be the individual that you are because no matter what you try to do, your society is controlled by regulations that you'll never be able to break through. In V for Vendetta, the whole point of this story is that the citizens of London in a futuristic dystopian setting are constantly surveilled wherever they go. There's curfews, they're not allowed to see their friends and family. And what this does is the government tells them what to believe and what to feel, and there is no way around it. And so what this individual, this protagonist does, this character, this faceless and nameless character, he stands up against the government and kind of rallies the individual to fight back, because other than that, the individuals are not seen as individual. They are seen as just workers that are expected to follow orders. So bureaucratic control is the second. The third one we're going to look at is probably my favorite and probably the most well-known, and that is technological control. Technological control is when society is controlled through technology, through computers, through robots, and other scientific means. And you can connect a lot of different stories with technological control. If you've ever heard of the Terminator, that is dystopian, right? And that is going to be technological control. Total Recall, as well as a lot of my students have at least heard of Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. I, Robot deals with robots that have gained consciousness, that are now realizing, holy crap, I am a robot, and am I going to be bad or am I going to be good? So we have a lot of stories dealing with technological control, something again like Ready Player One. How do they manage their lives? Through virtual reality, through technology. It doesn't necessarily have to be robots. It could just be computers. It could just be how our world is created around technology. A lot of these futuristic stories will connect with technology because that's how we see our future, whether it's in a positive way or a negative way. So a lot of them deal with the technological control. And then finally, our fourth type of dystopian control would be philosophical or religious control. That is where society is controlled by philosophical or religious ideology and often enforced through dictatorship or a theocratic government. If you guys have ever seen The Matrix, by the way, all four of them are now on Netflix. The whole idea behind The Matrix is that there is a supreme being, this godlike figure that controls society. And Neo, that this main character, your Keanu Reeves character, is considered the one, the chosen one that will take everyone to their salvation. He's kind of perceived like a Jesus figure. And a lot of our other stories, such as if you've ever heard of the original Planet of the Apes or the newer versions of Planet of the Apes, again, what are they looking for, or what is controlling them? It's typically what started them, whether it's like a god-like figure or the first of a species. You're going to find philosophical control a lot of times. You just might have to look for it a little bit deeper. But again, all four of these types of control, you could find multiple in a story. You might have a story that has philosophical and religious control as well as bureaucratic control. So you will need and you are expected to understand these four different types of control. I would definitely recommend looking and researching some of these. And again, I'm always here if you want to ask me anything. Again, I'm very well versed with these stories if you would like to clarify something. So, one of the last things I want to definitely touch base with you is the dystopian protagonist. I gave you some examples of some of them from recent movies, but this protagonist often feels trapped and is struggling to escape. They question their existing societal and political system. So, as in, if they're living in a system, someone like Katniss Everdeen, she understands that something is wrong with her society and she questions it and she wants to change it. And it's the same thing with some of these other individuals from Divergent or V for Vendetta, Mad Max, another great example of something where someone questions what is wrong with their reality. They believe or feel that something is terribly wrong, and they are the person that helps us, the audience, understand and recognize the negative aspects of the world through their perspective. So, generally, these are the characters that we see that are struggling through something, and we follow along with their journey as they either fix the problem, they confront the problem, or they fight against the problem. So we see a lot of these, and generally in these types of stories, you can easily identify that character who you will be following along throughout the story. It's usually not as much based just through society, it's through a number of specific characters. So, we have some famous dystopian authors here. Some of them I have talked about, or their books. A Handmaid's Tale I mentioned. George Orwell, he wrote 1984, but he also wrote Animal Farm. George Orwell, he was a very, very well-known dystopian author. We also have Ray Bradbury, obviously. You're going to definitely need to know his name because we're going to be reading a couple of his stories. And of course, he is also the author for Fahrenheit 451. If you guys have ever seen the movie A Clockwork Orange, which is very, very disturbing, H.G. Wells wrote The Time Machine. Look how long ago, 1895. Guys, this is how long these stories have been around. The ideas of the future. What does the future hold, and will it be good or will it be bad? And obviously, we have Suzanne Collins, who wrote The Hunger Games all the way back in 2003. There's a reason that I put this one at the end with that date, because if you look, you see this lovely chart I got. This is dystopian fiction with a timeline on it. If you see this timeline, what you're going to notice about it is this is going back to 1920. We have some interest in these types of stories back in the 1920s. Definitely, it looks like in the 40s, the interest in dystopian fiction definitely spiked. And that would have been around the time of World War II. So, World War II, back up until about 1955, we had a definite interest in these types of fictional fantasy sci-fi stories. But then if you look after 1955, it definitely drops very, very quickly. But curiously enough, around 2010, it spikes again. And it's been high ever since. And you know what book caused that spike to happen? It was Suzanne Collins and The Hunger Games. This book, it's considered young adult fiction, but it had 3 books that came along with it, as well as 4 movies, and the interest in this idea again was spiked very high. And then you had other books that followed behind it, like Divergent or The Maze Runner, and lots of other books that young adults started picking up, going, this is actually pretty good. I like this type of story. You have the young protagonist that is fighting against a system that they do not feel is right. So we have a high interest right now, and it continues to remain very, very high, especially in an age where it looks like our future is sort of bleak in a way. So this is interesting when you look at this dystopian fiction history. So, oops, that was my fault. What we want to focus on is one of our main authors, and that is Ray Bradbury. So whether you are in my honors class or my regular class, you will be reading about Ray Bradbury. Um, he has a career spanning more than 70 years. He's one of the most famous dystopian writers to date. Isn't he cute? Look at him. He wrote hundreds of short stories, some of them which we will be reading, close to 50 books. He wrote poems, essays, operas, plays, teleplays, and screenplays. So some of the stories that he wrote, he also had his hands in the production of them being brought to screen. His groundbreaking works obviously include Fahrenheit 451. He wrote The Martian Chronicles, The Illustrated Man, Dandelion Wine, and if you've ever heard of Something Wicked, This Way Comes. So this is the most recent copy of Fahrenheit 451. This is the 60th anniversary edition, in which this is the importance of this book. So whether you will be in a class that will be reading this book versus the classes that will be reading his short stories, you have to understand this text. The story is set in a not too distant future when the firemen in the society are no longer putting out fires. Instead, they are searching and punishing those who found or are in the possession of books. In this society, books are absolutely outlawed, because what do books do? They give people ideas. So reading literature, reading anything is totally banned for them. The plot of the novel revolves around the protagonist. So we talked about the dystopian protagonist. His name is Guy Montag, and he questions the nature of his society. Why are books banned? But he also happens to be a fireman that burns them. We also have characters such as Clarice and obviously Montag's wife, who does abide by the law. So this has an importance because it deals with an idea of censorship. And censorship, I do want you to take a look at what that means. This idea of banning books has been around for a long time. Books have been banned for years. The majority of the books that I have here at one point or another have been banned. Even Of Mice and Men was considered it was considered censored ideas and ideas that they didn't want to spread around. So there are plenty of school libraries around this country in which Of Mice and Men is banned for its language, for its themes, and for its general depressive settings. So there is an idea behind banning books, and Ray Bradbury brings this to the forefront within his text of Fahrenheit 451. So why is the society burning books? Again, like I said, it's clear that the society was highly totalitarian, and so they wouldn't like the idea of people thinking for themselves. There are countries in this world right now that they don't like their citizens thinking for themselves. Books and ideas have always been considered a threat, and that is true in our everyday society. And so what Ray Bradbury did was take that idea about banning books and censoring ideas and putting it into a fictional story about what happens in the future if what I'm holding in my hand right now could send me to jail. And that's what the idea of this book is really about. So, at the end here, the advancement of technology in Fahrenheit 451 and the neglect of books brings about destruction and conflict in the society itself. Technology allows people, and that's true, it allows people to stay inside and watch television. Isn't that what we're doing right now with COVID-19? We are using technology to communicate, whether it's through Teams or Zoom or TikTok and Snapchat and texting. Yes, we are able to do that. And we don't have to leave our house as much. The consequences of this, people have less interactions with the world and with other people. We're starting to lose that. The media is keeping people from knowing what's really going on. That's a big conspiracy theory right now. Sure. Are we really just relying on what the media is telling us? Mm-hmm. Or are we researching things for ourselves? That's what this whole unit on dystopian literature will be about. So what you guys will be expected to do is watch this video or go through this slideshow on your own and answer the week 2 lesson. If you need my help with any of that, please reach out to me. But take the time to research what we will be looking into. And I hope that this video is giving you what you need to be able to understand these concepts. Read through it on your own. And other than that, I will be communicating with you guys again soon. I really do appreciate your time watching this video. Go back and reread the slides on your own. Guys, you are amazing.